Bonjour à tous. Welcome back to our very special lesson about French politics, society, and cultural. Well, in this session, we are going to sail into the deep sea because today I'm going to talk about a subject which is very, very difficult. But this is also a very, very essential session because we are going to try to visualize the French national power and also how the economic problem occurs within the French society. So we are going to see many graphics and statistics and also tables. Well, there are many figures from which we can understand the French national economic power. For example, for the first figure, France is the first country in the world where they have the #1 of foreign tourists. So France is very famous for traveling. Well, this is certainly a very important symbol of their national power. Well, and the France in the world. Well, the France is ranked 7th biggest economic power on the world. And on this slide, you can see a graphic and a table. Well, tables are taxes. I think that nowadays we don't like to read taxes. So graphic that you can see on the far left-hand side is a more visual way to make us understand the weight of French economy in the world. So you can see that the US is the biggest economy and China is the second biggest economy in the world. This is a graphic about the tax to GDP ratio. Well, honestly, I don't understand at all. What does it mean? But all I can tell you is that this is a graphic that makes you understand the ratio between tax people pay to government and their revenue. So here in this graphic, you can see that the tax GDP ratio is about 45% in France, which probably means that French taxpayer, they have to pay much more bigger part of their revenue to their government in order to sustain their government annual budget. Well, this is a graphic about France's real GDP growth rates. Here we can see that in 2018, well, the GDP growth rates of France is rather good, between 1.5 to 1.9. But in 2020, GDP growth rates fall down drastically because of the pandemic. And in 2021, this GDP growth rate per semester is going back to the normal. And this is a graphic about the French GDP per capita. Well, in some way or another, this is a figure from which we can see more or less the income of French society. And so this is also a measure that we can know how much French people can gain a salary for their life. So we can see from this graphic that the GDP per capita is above 40,000 NT dollars from 2009 until 2014. But from 2014, this GDP per capita fall drastically in 2015. And this figure increased a little bit until 2018. But from 2018, the GDP per capita of France fell down again, which means probably that French families, French people gain less salary for their daily life. Well, here I put several graphics, but from the graphic on the far left-hand side, you can see that the GDP per capita in France is decreasing. This statistic comes from the OECD. So on the far left-hand side, you can see that from the year 2000 to year 2019, the GDP per capita is decreasing. Well, on the other side, we can see that the employment rate is low, but still increasing steadily until 2019. What does it mean? Well, I would say that in general, French people, they do have job. The employment rate is good enough. But even though people have job, but people get less salary, they gain less resources from their job. I think that this is the lesson that these graphics try to tell us. And in this graphic, we can see that the structure of French economy sector. France is in the agriculture sector, it is very low, rather 1.7 And the second sector for the industry is very steady, about 16 to 17%. And for the third sector, it is over 60%. So it means that French economy depends very much majorly upon the productivity of the service sector. This is a screenshot that I took from a video stream in which we can see that the productivity per hour in France is roughly good. It is about $61 per hour. So it means that the productivity of French workers are relatively good enough. Previously, we have seen the employment rate of the French society. And on this graphic, we can see the unemployment rate of the French society. As you can read from this graphic, the very first peak of unemployment rate was reached at around the years of 1994. And this unemployment rate began to decrease all the way down, and the lowest unemployment rate was reached in the years of 2008. But this unemployment rate began again to go up and reach a second peak around the years of 2015. And indeed, this unemployment rate decreased a little bit, but around 2018, 2019, 2020, we observed a tendency of going slightly up of this unemployment rate. And on this graphic, what does it mean? In the previous session, I have said that in France, the middle class, the so-called middle class, could be decreasing. Why? Why do I say so? From this graphic, we can see that almost more than 50% of French employees, they gain less than 2,000 euro per month. And you can see that only 1.4% of the French population, they can gain more than 8,000 euro per month. So here you can see the huge inequality in terms of salary, because more and more French people, they do have job, but they earn less and less from their salary. So the gap between the poor and the rich are increasing. Well, this is a very complicated graphic, but this is also a graphic from which we can see that according to the family situation, inequality become more and more serious in France. Taking for the example of the famille monoparentale on the second category, means the single parents family. And in these single parent family, those parents, their salary is very, very low. They earn only a little bit more than 1,000 euro per month. And you can see that in this category, the single parents family, only a few of the people who can reach the threshold of richness. So in this graphic, you can see how French society is composed. The rich you are, you have greater ability to raise more child with your wife or with your husband. So this is the last category, means couple, 3 infants or more. So they do have some family where they have more children, but these families are more usually formed by couple. They have double income, so they can raise more children. Whereas those single parents family, they have less salary, but they are more numerous in terms of number. So here come to the end points of this session. So through this session, we try to visualize the poverty problem of the French society. On the graphic of the left-hand side, you can see that the 10%, the very famous 10% that we repeat, they hold 27% of the national revenue, whereas the 10% of the most poorest family, they can share only about 2.8% of the national revenue. So the inequality between the richest and the poorest is becoming more and more serious. And on this chart, you can see, on this graphic, you can see that the top north part and the down south parts of the France, they have more poor family. And you can see that even in Paris, there is a small, tiny arrondissement district where the poverty problem is serious. So this is all for today. And these are references that I get from internet. And before the next session, Hope that you can stay tuned and hope to see you next time. Au revoir, à la prochaine fois.